Hey everyone, hope you had a great trading day. So we had some real breakouts today and we had some very interesting action to say the least. So today's video we're going to be going over what I think are 20 ideas that you need to watch how they perform tomorrow. There's a lot of really interesting breakouts in this list, so just sit back, probably take some notes. Wouldn't be a bad idea for some key levels, and we're just going to jump right into it. So everything's in alphabetical order. Someone will put the timestamps in so you can use this to kind of go through it over a period of time, tomorrow or the next day, kind of stay with it. So let's just jump right into it. So this was very interesting today, and let's clean this chart up and get rid of the relative volume. We don't need it right now, but this was very interesting today. So we talked about this one a little bit earlier in the week, how we were going to break out of this flag, and that's exactly what happened here. We broke out, poked our head up, and then we got up to this level, right? The 60.5 level, really. 60, 62, we've been saying 60.5. What you're seeing here, we rallied up, then we have this doji, right? Which kind of leads us to know that we're going to come in as soon as we undercut it. And that's exactly what it does. But if you look at this, and this is really important to notice, we've completed that pattern, right? So the doji completed, and then it has a decision to make. When they complete, that decision is, do I continue? Or I've completed this, and now what are we going to do? And you can see what it did today, right? So this was a fairly easy trade, in my opinion, where you're buying it off the open almost, and then you can just use this as your stop, right? That's one way to play these. So especially when the pattern of the evening star is completed, this should be your stop, especially when your bar is up a little bit on the close, so you can kind of see what's going on here, right? And then you just took off, and then it was just fairly simple to follow this along all day today, and you just kind of see what's going on with it, right? Let's get rid of these indicators. And right off from back here, you can just see we never filled this gap. Just stayed in it all day. Then we hitting these levels, riding around here, getting to the top of this. So I mean, it's acting perfectly. It's really hard. It had one like blip today, but it's really hard to say that this has the makings of something that's going down anytime soon. It really doesn't. A matter of fact, what you're seeing is you're seeing buoyancy even in the option expiration tomorrow, which if I was short would concern me a lot. So definitely continue to watch this and put it on your list. Now, it's just getting more and more interesting as the trade develops. Look at this, right? We have an actual wedge on AMC up when it's at 60. It's just insane. So this is setting up, and this is setting up to go higher. So I would be watching this level and essentially watching this is really what I want to see. If we get through that tomorrow during Friday option expiration, I think you're going to see a lot of option activity, frankly, and I think they're going to just push it up and run it. So just keep that in mind. It's definitely something to consider. If you're aggressive, that's an aggressive trade for obvious reasons. I mean, hopefully I don't need to explain that. So AMD does what AMD usually does, is it makes you think that it's just not going to do anything, and then one day it does. And exactly what transpired here was, see this downward trend line that we have, and I'll throw the moving averages in a minute. And this is AMD, and I'm just going to put the symbol back up here. Okay. And we're just going to go from there. So what you're seeing here is you're seeing a nice rally, okay, and that rally should continue. Why should that continue? Well, you see how you rode this the whole way down, and then after, look, you rode this line the whole way down. Like we've left this line in here for a while, right? Since we hit here, broke out on this anomaly, and now here we are. But look at what it's doing. Okay, this is your long-term upper trend line. So if we draw this out, okay, if you draw that out, see where you're at here? Okay, now let's zoom in on this. Okay, you can see exactly what I'm talking about, right? Look at this. Look at the breakout. So in other words, I bounced off this line, ran through my resistance point of all my wicks. And oh, by the way, I broke back into the upper channel today. So that was the reason I wanted to cover this one versus some of the other semi names. There are some decent ones, but this is about as great of a setup as you could possibly get. Now, tomorrow again is option expiration, so anything can happen. But if you get through this point here and you get through the high, this can keep going. This could keep running. And the semis are setting up again to run. So I would consider this. It is definitely something that you should be taking a look at and putting on your list. And the rest of the stocks that we're going to review today, a lot of them are like that. They're really setting up very nicely. You know, we can add to the fact that it's above the 200-day as well. So like it's setting up for a monster move. I mean, look at this. Look at that volume versus where we're at. Let's look at relative volume really quickly and just see what that tells us. Yeah, I mean, you need to be paying attention to this. I don't think I can be any clearer at this point. You really need to be paying attention to this. So where could we go? Well, where they go usually when you break the wedge line, and just remember this or write it down. When you break the wedge line, what happens? Right? When you break this, you head back to the top of wherever that wedge is. So if the wedge began here, you'd head here, here. Now you'll have stops along the way. This is going to be nasty. Okay, we can get rid of this for a moment, but this is just going to be really nasty to get through. And it's going to take time. I don't think we're going to, if we ran tomorrow and had another huge up day, which could happen with the volume that you've seen today and that bounce off the 50, 21 and through the 200, like that's a monster move. So you could get to this 89.17 level, but I'd be surprised if you got through it. So I'm going to cover this cloud. And the reason I want to cover it is because there's several names in the space to go over. And I'm going to go through those very quickly. One net we're going to cover pretty directly. But these names, I just want to go through a couple just so we're on the same page. So cloud computing is setting up to move higher. Okay. And this index does not move a lot. It's a singular index. So it's not this ETF rather. So it doesn't have a lot of oomph with it. But when it moves, these moves, even though from 27 to 28 are significant throughout the individual stocks. So if we clean this up a little bit, we can see this channel and we could see how we could get to this 29.25 fairly easy, right? So then just overlay these indicators back in. And what are they telling us? Well, they're telling us that the 50 is crossing the 21, or the 21 is crossing the 50, the 200 is crossing, and we're heading higher. Getting through 28 on this, which it's not a coincidence that it stopped there. This has been a level that we've had to watch for some time. So, and it looked like we were going to do it, came back down. Looks like we're going to do it again. If we break out of this, you're going to see more flow in these. And I just want to go through these I'm going to do these very quickly because I want to stay on 20 stocks. This is crowd. Okay. And I like, I'm more focused on net right now, but I do like this name. And we're going to do another one as well, but see how you finally broke over this trend. Look at this trend. You finally broke over it and you're finally over the 238 level to 241. This should push very easily. And especially on a bar like this, where you have the open here and the close here, that's about as bullish as you can get. You should push to 251 fairly quickly, and that should get you through new highs. Now, once we get through that, this is something that you probably really should be paying attention to. But I would wait for that because I think there's better names. And I'll get into that. I might as well do it now. So I think this is the one that people really need to be watching. And the reason I say that is because the base has been going on. So since back here, okay? So you're basing for almost 7-8 months back here. And I'm just going to draw this out so you can see where I'm going with this. And we tried to get in this the other day, and then it did the head fake, and now we formed the wedge. And then off that wedge line, right, look how we just jumped. Okay, so here's your wedge line. Right? And then you jumped off that line, and then there you go. Boom. That's what you want to see. That's exactly what you want to see. So, it's just textbook. Now, if you overlay this with the relative volume, you're almost a 2x volume today. So this is what you're looking for if you're looking for cloud stocks. A couple people asked me about this one today, and I just want to go through this. I'm not a fan of this name, and it's somewhat hard sometimes to explain this stuff via text but let's just go through all this really quickly. Let's remove all this and get rid of this. So I get what they're saying when they asked me about it, right? So there's this wedge line right here. And my comment was that I think you're going to fall back under the line, but if not, this is the level that you need to see. So essentially what you're looking for is to see it breaking this level, and you're sitting right on it, right? This is snow. And now it's 3 times you've rejected this 2810 level, right? So when you get through that, if you really wanted to be in it, that's where I would say that you need to be in it, because you have a bullish engulfing bar here, right? So it should push. But the issue really is that you have another issue up here, okay, which is at 256. So it's an issue, right? On top of that, if you look at this chart, okay, I mean, if you truly just drill down into this, why am I playing with this? Like, why even bother, right? I have this enormous channel right here. Like, why even play with this thing? Because all you're going to do is hope that you break this and then hope that you break up here. Whereas if you look at net, you already have blue skies. So why play games? Just buy the leader. It's the same thing I've been saying with, NVDA. Just why are you looking at other semiconductor stocks? Do you own NVIDIA? And we'll get into that trade in a minute. But just think like that. Why do I want to own something else? I'd rather own the best. So that's it for cloud stocks. And then we'll just we'll keep rolling along. And I'm going to cover net again, I think. So Dash, I was asked to cover. I understand why. I tried this trade at 138. And we got up to 153. And I thought it would go. I thought we'd get to that 167 level. So what it did was just shake us out and then go. And it happens all the time. There's nothing wrong with it. But so I wouldn't touch this here. What I would want to see at this point before I would invest is getting through 167 and a quarter. Getting through that would be huge. So getting through that, we've not done that since we started this whole process, right? We haven't done it here. We haven't done it here. So it's setting us up like that. So that's what we'd want to see there. Very, very clean, very simple. 167 and a quarter. There's not much more to say. I'd like to see more volume. I am surprised that it's moving in this kind of environment. This is one that we're in from the newsletter. And there is a free version of the newsletter that is in the bio and description. It comes out once a week on Wednesdays. So if you want to follow along or just get updates, just click on it. And it'll go right to you. So what's going on here and what are we doing? Well, this was a really simple trade. Okay, really very simply what you're doing is you're undercutting a support line, right? And then you're reversing. And if you look at this pattern, what is it? It's a morning star, right? So what happens? We get above here and then we go. Now, this was just a very simple trade that I pointed out. And I don't know that I'm going any higher than completion of the Morningstar pattern, right? So the Morningstar pattern is now complete, correct? So, and why is it complete? Well, it's complete because here's the red bar. Here's like the little Morningstar, the star itself, right? Here's here. And then essentially when you break down like this, you go to the top of this bar, right? So that pattern's complete. We don't know what's going to happen, okay? It could roll here and respect this line. It could get through it. We just don't know. But that was the trade. So the question becomes, what do you do now with it? Well, for me, if I was in this and I was trying to stay in it, I've got really good cost, right? So if this is going to go back to 32, I'm in at the right price. So then I would just move my stop to the low of what today was. And if I hit it, I'd get out. Because if I break this low of 27, I'm going to break this most likely. So why wait around? Just get out of it and go on to the next one. And I'll just throw this down here for now. So right now if you're not in this already, you need to wait until you break through this line. And by breaking through this line, that would mean that we're probably going to test this level again, the 32.5 level. And this is DDD. And I like the name. I really do. I like the name a lot. And I like the space. But, you just have to watch it. We kept bumping 32 and 29. We broke down. And I think this has massive potential, huge earnings. So this is the 3X Bear ETF. And I know people like playing these, but I'm just going to point this out. I mean, you could argue that when you own these, you have to understand that every single day they're eroding in value if it stands still. So they eroded a value, 3 times faster than an ETF erodes. So that's why you see these moves, and even if the indexes aren't doing anything, they're going down. Now, if you just focused on what's going on here and not this massive downtrend that we've had since November, but if you just focused on this, you would notice what's going on here and what's transpiring, right? So really, I get why someone's looking at this and saying, I want to play it, but I don't find it worth the risk. And for me, here's the issue. And we're going to just focus on these last couple bars because that's really all that matters, because we're looking at a simple trade. I just had one of the strongest moves I've ever had in this, right? Because of what happened today with the XLF, which was surprising, but it's why we have stops. I didn't think that we would sell off on that after the guidance yesterday, but we did. So here you are at 2804. You broke through it, 2871. This would be a level that you could use as a minor support, but I'm not chasing this thing after a 10% move. It could have another one, but frankly, I think that financials are oversold. So I'd actually be on the other side of this trade. I'd want to see it not break a new high, but I'd be looking for signs that possibly that it's going to sell back down somewhere in this bar. So just watch that one. I don't think it's something you need to be involved with. So this is one we have not followed before, and it's out and it's relatively new. So we're just going to cover it, but here. So this is your hourly chart, and I'm not really a enormous fan of this, but here's your 3609 level, and that's your support. And now you have this wick that's forming, right? Like right here, and now you have a wedge, and I've come back down. I've opened on this line, ran, failed, opened like I was going to go, failed. Seems like a lot of games. Let's just overlay these indicators, even though it's the hourly, just to get a sense of it. I mean, I see what they're looking at. What I would want is this here. So let's just go to indicators for a moment and see if relative volume on an hourly chart is going to tell us anything. And so it does, right? So it tells us that we had a huge buying today, right? At one point today. So that tells us something. It tells us that we're getting interest. Actually, we're getting the most interest we've ever had. So then we could drill down into it and say, all right, well, what needs to happen for me to think that this is going to continue? Well, at this point, I have to get through this wedge line, right? I at least have to get through that wedge line, if not this level, or if you want to be super technical, people are going to wait for this up here, okay? So there are your levels that you'd be waiting for. My argument always is, if you buy it out of the wedge, I think you're better off. And then just, if you get stopped out, you get stopped out. But you don't want to go to 38.5 when you could be at 37. And you can get into 37. It goes to 38.5. And then you can have the stop below it. And then now you're protected versus going to 38.5 and rejecting. And now you have a stop loss. So when you trade, just think about risk and how you can find ways to mitigate risk. And you'll be surprised what you start thinking of. So let's just go through this, and let's do this on a daily. Fiverr. And let's get rid of this. Okay. So here's your main line, 109 or 199.02, I'm sorry. And then you're trying to poke your head up, but you're not having the easiest time here, are you? Right? You have to get through that. And you have this little position right over here that it looks like you're breaking finally, right? It looks like you broke it here, rallied through it, failed, came back down, tested, and now you're setting up again. If this got through 212 3/4 and it could push to this level, which would be 229.68, that would be something to look at for sure. Absolutely. And so these indicators out there. Yeah. And they're telling you a story. I mean, they're definitely telling you that this is a crux where you're at. And I wouldn't be surprised if we overlay this with, let's look at this with a volume profile for a moment. Yeah. So that's not overly surprising. Like here's your point of control with it. So I could see this I could see this going. I could see this breaking out and doing that. Let's just keep going down here. I just want to see something for a moment. That's not really where I want to be. Hold on one second. Let's go to here and see if that changes. Yeah, I mean, it's 6 1/2. Moves it up a little bit, right? Gets me right there, actually. So the point of control for the volume profile is right here. And you can see how the volume lessens as we go up. So you could swing here from 212.75 out. So just consider it. I'd like to, again, we need to see volume and go from there. But I understand the trade and I like it. MDLA. So let me just fix this to this. Perfect. So MDLA, what we want to see is we want to see this get into this falling part, right? Okay, I would say gap, but it's not really a gap because you have these huge red bars that are there. You have a little gap, but you don't have an enormous gap. So let's look at this. And this is MDLA. I'm going to put this over here because we're going to have to open this up big time. Okay, and then we're going to have to just do this with it so we can really see what's going on and just focus on this part for a moment. So here, put this one right here. See how you tried to break out of it? Couldn't. Bam. Now what happened? Support and resistance flip, right? So this was resistance. And what is it now? Now it's support. See how it's supporting that? You have that little Morningstar pattern right on top of that wedge. Boom. What did we do today? Tried to get above the 200-day and failed. What would we want to see? For me, there's 2 levels. I'd probably trade that one and try to see if I'm going to get through that. And then if I don't, just honor the stop, and just move the stop up. But I really want to get into this because if I can get into this, I can get to $40. I can get up here. And now we can pull this down a little bit. Now that we've dealt with the minutia and you can see what I'm talking about. You could get up here. And if you get up to here, there's really nothing in here that's going to stop you from doing that. And again, this is MDLA. Marvel, I really like the move that this had today. This is a pretty substantial move. It's a big name. I would have liked to have seen more volume. But here, let's get rid of these indicators because we don't really need them for this one. And just go here and just read price. 51.31, and look how you cut right across of it, right? Boom. And you just broke out, attempted to get through this once, first time failed, boom, and then gone. I mean, it's really what you want to see. There's a channel line out here. I don't even really want to get onto where this thing could go if it pops back in that channel, but it's substantially higher than where it is now. So really what our next level is going to be that you're going to have to see is $56. And I would wait for it now. But if I got above 56 on this, this has a lot of potential. Even if you just do the dip count down to here, if you just take that space to count it out, you have 20 points. Hold on, let me make sure of that. 56 to 40. Yeah, you have 16 points. So that's not a bad spot to be. I mean, it's basically telling you have a $70 target on this just off of that. That's not even talking about when you get to 70, you're probably back in this channel. So that's definitely something to consider. And I get this one and I like it. So this is the one that I think that people really need to be focused on if you're looking at cloud stocks. Not so much Snow, not so much DDOG or FSLY, or I can't stress this enough. And I learned this years ago and it worked. And it took me lessons to get whacked around a couple times as I went and looked for the new widget. You buy the leaders. And I don't mean you buy the leaders that you think are the leaders, like, oh, I like their product, they're going to be the leader. You buy what the stock market is telling you the leaders are. Okay. Very clearly, crowd is not at a 52-week high. Okay. If you think cloud stocks are going to continue to go up, but somehow net is going to go down, but crowd is going to go up and Snow is going to go up, it doesn't work that way. Right? A rising tide lifts all boats. If net keeps going, it's going to pull the others up with it, but one is going to outperform. And that's really the goal, right? You don't want to just make money. You want to make the most amount of money you can with the least amount of risk, right? Pretty simple concept. So what you're going to see here at 95.77 is we tried to break out. I bought it, got stopped out, formed a wedge, and then it went. Happens all the time. It's a beautiful looking chart. If you were stopped out of this and you're not in it, today, which could easily have happened. It is what it is. And now you have to find a way into this position. This is a 8-month trend of just consolidating. I'm trying to figure out the right way to explain it because it's not enough detail. See how you're running up here? You come back down, you test the 50, you try to break out. First time you fail, bounce, right? Fail, right? All this pent up, everyone that's pent up in this, they're not selling now. Okay. They're not. Like if you go and look at the volume profile on this, you're nowhere near having anything now, right? And it's not hard to understand, right? Let me just do this real quick so you can see what I'm saying. Hold on. Just so you can follow along with me. Okay. So this was your point of control for the year. Okay. So that puts it in perspective. This was your VWAP and you could see how you bounced around that. That's VWAP determined by this profile. What we're looking at, or what I'm getting at with this, is very simple. Once I got through this line, 86, right? We had no volume here to stop it. And what happened? We just ran. Okay. Now that you've come back down, tested these little levels and then gone, is there any reason to think that anyone's going to be selling the stock right now? And the answer is no one's going to probably be selling the stock. So let's look at the 8-day and see what that's telling us. And the 5-day. Okay. So really we're respecting the 8-day more than anything right now. So I would just continue to watch this and hope that it sells back down and you get a shot at it to get it in cheaper. If not, you're going to have to start looking at 15-minute and hourly charts to get into it. So NVDA. So this is one I think we are in from $6.99 from the newsletter, and let's just get right into this. So this is obviously splitting soon. That's not really big news. I mean, we're all aware of that, but the move is pretty substantial, and we've been in and out of this one a couple times. Let me just close this real quick. So today we just had a really very strong move, but let's just see how this followed up. We were talking about this morning, how you just have this wedge, right? And then if you could in your undercut here and look at your opening, you're still low, and look what happens. Boom. It just rocks and rolls. And that's exactly what transpired today. So I would argue that this is setting up for even another move before you split. Now, we'll see how tomorrow and what happens with option expiration. But to me, this is setting up to go higher, even now. So I would just watch this. My first target today on this break was 750. We got there for a little bit and pulled back, but you're right there. But you can see, look, let me just walk through this so you can see what I see. And at least try to understand it a little bit. And okay. So you have another trend line that's right here. Okay. You have another one here. So what these are doing is, so you can understand this, as you're going up, these lines are getting wider and wider. This one's not drawn perfectly, but they're getting wider and wider. So your angle, right, is increasing as they're going up. That means the trajectory of your chart is changing. Okay. So, and I guess it's an advanced technique. I don't know, but just pay attention to this. When you draw lines like this and you start seeing them going and staggering higher, it just means you're changing the channel trajectory, and that's exactly what it's doing. And then you get a day like today where it just breaks out. And so, hopefully you get a sell-off tomorrow and you get the opportunity to buy some cheaper, but I'm not sure that's going to happen. So we're going to have to see how that plays out. Path. So in regards to Path, I wanted to cover it because I got asked about it, and I get asked about it a lot. And I just want to point this out. We're not going to spend a lot of time on it. It's pretty clear right now that there's really no reason to get into this. But look at this. Okay, see this line right here and see you're wedged in. So something's going to happen. What that something is, we just don't know yet. A lot of people were interested in this one. We broke out here and reversed, right? This is why it's so important. Like the number one thing when people reach out to me is I'm in the stock and I'm down 80%. I'm in this stock, I'm down 50%. Okay, here's your goal: to not be that person, right? Just take the loss, move on with your life. We've all been there, and we're all going to take losses. I took losses today. It happens. It's part of the business, and you need to understand that, not take it personally or think you're doing something wrong because you're taking a loss. it's a hard concept, I think, for some to get. Anyway, we were talking about this megaphone pattern a while back and how it was expanding, right? You can see I have these lines here, and I don't even need these indicators. So we broke this one, kept trying to rally, and we're just not able to. There's no need to go through this until we break out of this trading range, and you see enormous volume on that break. So this one is probably ready to go, since I don't think it's going to move, as the best way that I can explain how this one moves. It moves when I don't think it's going to, right? But everyone's all excited because we're up, but that's where you closed. You closed where you're here, and you closed where you're opened, and you closed right on that, about 3 cents away from it. So I'm not overly excited. What I see is I see a pattern that is complete, which is somewhat like a morning star, and I need to break out of this for it to go. So now tomorrow, if you pop over this and run, I could be paying attention to this. Because I do have a little base here, and you'd be going to 27.5, but you have a ton of stuff in here where people want to sell and get out of. So but this is a really interesting one. Let's get rid of everything. Let's spend a little time on this, because this is a really good lesson, and I can just tell by the way it's basing, where we could use some of these other tools to try to understand a little bit maybe what's going on, right? So let's just see where we're at. So that's interesting, right? So essentially, we're through the point of control, and we're through VWAP today. So that is something that's positive that may affect the way that the stock's moving. And you can see all these wicks. I mean, you know that that's all price rejection, probably because of this VWAP or the point of control. So we can get rid of this now. We don't need it. So we've used that, and it's given us some color. And what we could do is then just go and take a look at the indicators for a moment and just throw in RSI and see, is that telling us anything? And why would that be important, RSI? Well, it'd be important because you've been basing for a while. So maybe RSI can tell us something. And by looking at it, it's really not telling us anything. It's just telling us that it's trending up and this is kind of going sideways. So that's not really adding any value. But the volume profile is telling you that, hey, we're above VWAP according to the volume profile, and we're above point of control. So there's worse places to be. Score Media, this did what it needed to do today, and I wanted to cover that. We talked about this volume. We talked about how volume was increasing last time we talked about this. You have a little flag here. You broke out of the flag. It's doing exactly what you need it to do. If you wanted to be in this, very simply, you just need to get above that, right, as your execution to get into the stock, and your target is going to be 30.43. And I think it might happen. I think you have a shot at it. So SE was one that I got asked a lot about today, and you can see how many lines I have on here, and I just have way too many. So let's get rid of this one. And okay. All right. And let's get rid of these indicators for a minute. So this has been your trend line the whole time. Okay. Since this breakout in a year. So you've gone from 38 to, wow, until it went to here to 216 just following this trend line, right? Every time it hit it, we bounced, bounce. Breakout. Now what? Tries again. Comes back down. We think it's over. And now it flips this line again. This is why I love leaving these lines in, because they do respect these types of trajectories. And now you've broken out. So this is what you needed to do today. It did what it needed to do. It's failed every day except for today. It's needed to get above this line. This is really big stuff. And this can continue to move. It really can. So like now that you're through 276, you're set up to go to the top of this trend line, because now you're back in the channel and you're over resistance. So you have this whole base here. I'm going to get rid of these again, because I think this is more important. You have this whole base here that started back here roughly, right? So you have all year you've been basing, and now you're getting ready, and you're heading to the top of this, right? And that puts you right around 310. So I think this has very large potential to continue. And my volume was above average, which is what I want to see. Very simply, let's just get above this wick, and I could see putting a trade on in that. So Shop was one that we were in on the newsletter. And I got asked a lot by a lot of different people to cover it, even some of the option guys. So let's just walk through what's going on here. So to me, there are certain patterns that are set up. And this reminded me a lot of Tesla when Tesla was at 1,000 before it ripped. Before it really ripped, and did the stock split, the whole 9 yards. And the reason for that is you have this enormous consolidation, right? And it's very clear where this consolidation is. Like, look, see this 800 level back here? Okay, see this level? Look at what's going on here. Okay, and now you're just, it's just getting tighter and tighter the whole way. And what's happening is this line is just increasing the whole way. So by the time I get up to here and grind, right, it's going to put me at 1,800. If I break out of this and flip, I have this entire base as my backstop. So there's going to be a lot of people that are going to wind up having to get in this and chase it. And I think a lot of people have stayed away from it. I don't think they really truly understand it and played with the larger names. They've played with the Googles and the Amazons. I don't think they understand the significance of this company. So I do almost feel like it's under-owned on an institutional basis, but that's fine by me, because let's get in even deeper and go from there. So let's talk about the trade now. So we got in this at 1335. This was our stop. Obviously, these numbers are going to change on our stop today. But if you're in this, you should be moving your stop up, obviously. I don't think you should, at this point, you should be taking a loss on it. But I think that this has massive potential to continue to move higher. And if you are not in it, you really need to be buying the options that you want to own when it dips down because they're expensive. You do not want to be buying them on the breakout. But for the stock people, you need to see the break of this 1460.75. You need to see that break. And then you could trade it, but you're going to have to use a smaller time frame, and you're going to have to realize that you're going to have to honor that stop because it's come down like this before. We've done this and come down 100, 200 points, and it's not fun. So TECL, very simply, is just, I wanted to show this because this was what I saw, and I thought that this was worth noting. So you have a line right here. Hold on. Before I put that in, I want to show this one. There it is. And this is TECL. Okay, so there's your line. Okay. And let me just do this with it. I know everyone's saying just get it over with, but sometimes I get anal. So the line's there, right? We tried to get above it. And this is what I wanted to show the person that was interested in this. So we tried to get above this line, right? And that's why this is here, because this is actionable to not be actionable. I need to get over this, right? I know you think you have a breakout. You don't. You need to get over this line. And that's why I'm showing this one. 51.34 if you want to play it, and you need volume. And that's why this one's in here. 10, this stock has become my nemesis. It does everything right to get me in it, to just make me not be profitable with this trade. And it's kind of funny. It's doing everything right. Like here's your wick, right? So you watch it on this one and you watch it break over this wick. And what does it do? Sells back down. Like it doesn't work that way, but it does with this stock for whatever reason. What's it do today? Break out again, right? And then just come in here and form a doji like it doesn't know what it wants to do. So I'm a little frustrated with it. I do think it's going to work. I just think that, some of these stocks that you expect them to act like momentum names, but they don't trade like momentum names. And I'm still in this trade. I think as long as I close above this 21.25 tomorrow, I will be happy to have my weekly bar close above this line for the first time. It has not done that. So here's 21.25. So Friday, if we just close here, I'm good. So, and that would get me to believe that I'm closer to getting to that 26 level. So just keep that in mind. I was asked about this today and what I saw. So I just want to go through that because I put this on as a recommendation and there's a reason for it. And I want to just get into it. So I didn't see, there was a lot of people talking about this, and I didn't see what they saw, right? It just seemed to me that people were just throwing out terminology like, oh, it's a triangle. It's got to go up. It doesn't work that way, right? It doesn't. Just because you're in this does not mean I'm breaking to the upside. But there are certain tells that you could start to use that will lead you to believe what, or confirm rather what you think, right? So let's just do this, okay? Let's go to the daily. And let's get rid of this, all right? So, and we're going to blow this up, pull this down, and this is Tesla. And we're going to get rid of these indicators because we don't need them for this right now. So this is what I saw. I saw this trend line here, okay? And I saw us break above that level. And I didn't want to wait to either buy options or stock until I got above this 627.55. So when we got through this today, that was my signal. So my stop has to be this low, which I really don't want it to be. What I'm going to wind up suggesting to people is that we're going to move the stop up to the low of what today is now. Now that we have a bar, we're just going to move it up there. And if it gets stopped out, we get stopped out. And we'll go from there and look for another spot to re-enter, because I don't think this is over now. And I just want to point something out. You see, when you have an RSI like this, today's RSI action changed, right? So this is where you were on the 16th. This is where you are on the 18th. So do you see how the action is changing, right? 16th, 17th. So all of a sudden, I've got a little U-turn. Well, look at where that U-turn just fits. That's where I U-turned today. So that's telling me that I'm probably going higher. Well, if the RSI is going to increase, that means the magnitude of the move is going to increase, and I could see something like this. That's when this became interesting to me. And then what I did was I overlaid this with it. So let me get rid of let me do it this way. There we go. Okay. So I overlaid a 15-minute chart with it, and we'll get rid of these indicators. And I drew a line. And when I drew the line, I watched this run up and then back test the line. Well, when you have your trend, your downward trend, you run and then you test, right? That line is now support. It's telling you that that's support. I mean, that's not guessing. I didn't draw the line for here. I drew it for here, right? But I came to here. So as soon as I did that, I knew I have a chance. Then I broke out, and then Tesla did what Tesla does. So, at the end of the day, I'm not worried about $1 or $2 on this stock. You can't be trading it like that. You have to get in there and hold on there and just honor the stop. And then if you get stopped out, you get stopped out. But that's what I saw on it, and that's why I recommended it for people to take a look at it. So let's just keep going. So here's UPST. Let me remove the segment line. Here's UPST, and let's just keep going. So here is a Morningstar pattern, right on this line. And what I was suggesting yesterday, and this is why pattern recognition is so important, is this is what I was suggesting. Long bar down, long bar. And then we had this one. So when we had this bar, I was asking the question, how could anybody think that this is done going down just because you're on the 50-day, right? It's not a huge wall. It doesn't mean it's going to just stop. So what did it do? Well, this is what it did, right? And it hung in there. So that's exactly what we wanted to see. It did exactly what we would want it to do. And I think that's really important to understand. So the question is, what do we do with it now? Well, for now, I think that we played it pretty well today. Our looking at this was if it got over the 123 level, even if it got over this close, right, this open level, that it could go. And it did it perfectly. So if you look at the action today, here's your open, and look at where your low is, right? So here's your open, and then here's your low. And then what do? We go up and the close, and we get over here. Look where you stopped. You just happen to stop at the high. I mean, it's not a coincidence that you're 10 cents or 20 cents off for that number. So really right now, we've completed the Morningstar pattern. So you really can't jump in there now, right? You kind of have to wait. So we're going to have to wait on this one a little bit and see what it does. But I do like this. And if I get above the 126.97 level, I would take a look at it. So that's it. As always, do me a favor and please hit the like button. I'm trying to get in front of as many people as humanly possible to show them what it takes to be truly successful at trading. Thank you very much. Have a great evening.